Those 1950s cast iron piston rings still seal combustion chambers, with unyielding grip after millions of hard miles. Modern low-tension wonders burn oil and lose compression before hitting 100,000. What brutal engineering secret made the old ones conquer time itself? By the early 1950s, America clawed its way out of wartime rationing into an industrial frenzy. The Korean War raged, demanding endless trucks and jeeps that could haul artillery through mud and mountains without quitting. Back home, factories stamped out pickup trucks for farmers rebuilding shattered lands, family sedans for workers commuting to booming assembly lines, and heavy rigs for cross-country freight that powered the post-war miracle. Engines weren't luxuries. They were lifelines. A seized piston mid-haul meant a driver stranded, cargo rotting, a business bankrupt. Oil burning through leaky rings spelled overheating, warped heads, total failure under load. No backups, no warranties, no roadside apps. Do or die hung on every cylinder firing true. Engineers faced a nightmare. Bigger V8s pumping 300 horsepower, revving hotter, pressures spiking to 200 psi, yet seals had to hold for 200,000 miles of abuse. Failure wasn't an option. It was economic suicide for Detroit, and every grease-stained operator betting their future on it. They cracked it with a technique called out-of-round casting, a deliberate defiance of geometry that bordered on black magic. Start with gray cast iron. That flaky, graphite-laced beast poured molten at 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit, glowing white-hot as it surges into molds. These weren't your backyard sand castings. These molds blended 7 distinct earths, clay sourced from quarries across the Midwest, kaolin for structure, bentonite for green strength, loams from riverbeds for thermal shock resistance, each layered in precise ratios to cure the metal slow and even. The result? A matrix of interconnected pores, microscopic reservoirs that trapped oil like a sponge, far superior to today's mirror-slick chrome-plated steels that shed lubricant at the first sign of wear. But the genius, the secret sauce, lay in the shape. They cast each ring intentionally oval, elliptically distorted, flattened on 2 axes by 5 to 10% off true round. Not a foundry flaw, but precision engineering. Picture the raw casting. A heavy hoop weighing 2 pounds per inch of bore, cooling in the flask with a resonant crackle as stresses locked in. When machined on massive grinders, cylinders rumbling like earthquakes, diamond wheels screaming at 10,000 RPM, the oval form persisted. Then came installation, slided into the bore, and physics took over. The ring springs outward with ferocious inertia. Its out-of-round profile compressing unevenly at first, then snapping into perfect cylindrical conformance. That distortion ensured radial tension distributed uniformly across every square millimeter. No high spots galling the wall, no low spots leaking gas. Pressures equalized to 50 psi per square inch, gripping with a vice-like embrace that combustion blasts couldn't budge. Measure the surface finish? In 1953, they did it in micro-inches, using interferometers and stylus profilometers that traced peaks and valleys to 8 to 12 micro-inch RMS roughness. That's smoother than a human hair's cross-section, yet porous enough for oil to wick in and stay. Heat expansion? Gray iron's coefficient matched cylinder bores dead on, swelling just right under 500-degree combustion spikes without binding. Inertia from reciprocating pistons at 6,000 RPM? The ring's mass-damped vibrations, their weight, 5 ounces apiece, providing flywheel stability that featherweight modern designs lack. Sensory hell in the foundry, the blistering radiant heat warping air into mirages, the metallic tang of iron oxide biting the lungs, the thunderous whomp of pneumatic rammers packing sand to 90 psi densities. Every ring emerged a fortress, forged for apocalypse. The men who birthed them paid in flesh. Foundry workers, mostly immigrants and farm boys toughened by depression scraps, slaved 12-hour shifts in infernos averaging 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Molten metal splashes meant instant third-degree burns, flesh sizzling off bone before screams echoed, hands mangled in the jolt rammers, fingers pulped to jelly. Silica dust from crumbling molds lodged deep in lungs, birthing silicosis that turned breaths to wet rasps by 40. No AC, no respirators, just sweat-soaked flannel and prayers. Machinists on the ring grinders faced flying abrasives that shredded corneas, deafness from unrelenting din. One slip on oil-slick floors near a ladle, and 50 gallons of 2,600-degree fury became a human torch. Amputations were badges, lost digits from press dies, crushed feet under mold flasks tipping 200 pounds. They averaged 40 years on the job, if cancer or collapse didn't claim them first. These rings carried their blood, etched in every pore, every tension line, a testament no robot line today can match. Fast forward 7 decades, those 1950s rings power tractors still plowing Iowa fields, dragsters screaming quarter miles, marine diesels churning oceans. Pull one from a 55 Chevy with 500,000 miles, crosshatch honing pristine, no scoring, compression 180 psi corner to corner. Abuse? Mud-clogged air filters, leaded fuel gumming oils, racers boiling coolant dry. They endured. Modern rings? Take the 2020s low-tension darlings in your average SUV. Coiled steel wire wound like cheap springs, plated thin for emissions compliance. Tension slashed 40% to cut friction. Meet cafe standards. Result? Oil burning at 50k miles. Blue smoke on startup, catalytic converters clogged by 80k. Why? Planned obsolescence, pure and simple. Chrome bores shed oil film instantly, no porosity. Wire coils unwind under heat cycles. Tension fades. Software nannies and ECUs mask the death spiral till warranty ends. Then dealer upsell. Boeing's 737 MAX software crashes killed hundreds. John Deere tractors brick via remote updates. Farmers can't fix their own rigs. We traded eternity for quarterly profits. Safety theater, regs forcing fragility. No massive safety factors, overdesigned by 500% in those old rings. Because who needs forever when lease cycles rule? Today, survivors rust in barns or gleam in museums like the Henry Ford, firing up crowds with untamed roar. A few aftermarket outfits revive the out-of-round castings for hot rods. But mass production forgot the way. Progress? We've gained shiny screens and lost the soul of iron, the brute, honest force that bent the world to human will. At what cost, this disposable dream? They cracked the code not with computers or finite element analysis, but with raw, intuitive mastery of metal's soul. Out-of-round casting, a technique that turned imperfection into invincible perfection. Gray cast iron formed the backbone, that humble yet ferocious alloy where graphite flakes suspended in a pearlitic matrix delivered unmatched damping and wear resistance. Poured at 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit from crucibles slung on overhead cranes, the molten fury cascaded into molds with a hissing roar, filling every crevice before solidifying into hoops of brute strength. These molds demanded artistry. Sand blended from 7 quarried earths across Illinois and Ohio, kaolin from southern pits for skeletal rigidity, bentonite from Wyoming veins for tacky cohesion under pressure, fireclays from Missouri for heat defiance, loams dredged from Mississippi floodplains for moisture balance, ball clays for fine plasticity, silica sands for skeletal sharpness, and ganister rock for refractory endurance. Mixed in ratios honed by decades of trial scars. 3 parts bentonite to 1 kaolin. Loam at 5%. These brews rammed to 90 psi densities yielded a cure that trapped microscopic voids. Pores averaging 50 microns wide. Oil-retentive caverns no modern vacuum-impregnated chrome could rival. That porosity wicked lubricant inward during the first heat cycle, building a film that endured 500-degree blasts and million-mile scouring. The oval heresy defined the miracle. Each ring cast 5 to 10% out of round. Major axis stretched 0.020 inches longer than minor, a deliberate ellipse born from asymmetric cooling gradients in the flask. As the metal contracted unevenly, thermal stresses warped the hoop precisely, locking in spring-back potential. Fresh from shakeout, these 2-pound-per-inch colossi glowed cherry red, scales flaking under wire brushes wielded by men in asbestos aprons. Onto the grinders they went. Behemoth machines with 48-inch diamond-impregnated wheels spinning at 10,000 RPM, hydraulic infeed pressing at 1,000 pounds force, coolant floods hissing into steam as ferrous dust clouded the air like battlefield fog. The oval endured machining, outer diameter trued to 0.005-inch tolerance, but inner geometry preserved for the kill shot. Installation unfolded in the engine plant. Piston warmed to 400 degrees for expansion. Ring snapped over the lands with snap ring pliers biting leather-gloved hands. Slid into the bore, honed with plateau crosshatch at 45 degrees, 35 micro-inch raw. The distortion unleashed. Compressed radially, the ring's inertia fought back. Elastic modulus of 15 million psi yielding just enough to conform. Uneven high points dug first, scraping micro-peaks. Then tension equalized. 50 psi uniform across the face. No gaps for blow-by. No hot spots for scuffing. Combustion at 2,000 psi peak pressure hammered down. The ring bowed inward, 0.003 inches yet sealed. Oil film pressurized to hydrodynamic perfection. Shear forces at 10,000 foot-pounds per minute shrugged off by massy girth. Precision ruled their world in 1953, when Federal Mogul and Hastings engineers wielded optical interferometers, mirrors tilting on helium tables to fringe patterns revealing waves of light distortion, and stylus profilometers dragging diamond tips at 0.1 inch per second, etching charts of 8 to 12 micro-inch RMS roughness. Smoother than today's nanotech coatings, yet graphitic peaks anchored oil against centrifugal fling at 6,000 RPM, where piston inertia topped 500 pounds equivalent force. Thermal growth synced flawlessly, 6.5 micro-inch per degree Fahrenheit, matching iron bores to prevent seizure under warped head torture. Vibration? The ring's 5-ounce heft acted as harmonic absorbers, damping third-order frequencies that shredded lighter rivals. This wasn't engineering. It was alchemy. Sensory overload in action. The seismic grind of flasks dropping 20 feet. Acrid bite of flux gases corroding teeth. Palpable weight of hoops stacking like cannonballs. Heat waves shimmering off ladles holding 1,000 pounds of liquid sun. Those who forged this eternity bled for it. Foundry pours ran dawn to midnight, 6 days weekly, temperatures peaking 140 degrees Fahrenheit amid open hearths. Portuguese and Polish immigrants, ex-farmhands with calluses like oak bark, manned the gates. One wrong twitch, and 100 pounds of slag erupted, searing thighs to char in seconds, medics slathering sulfa powder over exposed muscle. Jolt squeeze molding machines, 2,000-pound hammers cycling 60 times a minute, crushed hands weakly, fingers severed clean at the knuckle, cauterized in the flame before ambulance runs to understaffed wards. Silica quotas hit 10 million particles per cubic foot, birthing the foundry cough. Bloody hacks progressing to black lung by 35. Half the crew pensioned out wheezing through perforated septums. No exhaust hoods until OSHA dreams decades later. Just wet burlap masks disintegrating in sweat. Ladle carriers slipped on graphite slicks, spilling cascades that ignited oil sumps into fireballs engulfing 3 men at Copper's plant in '52, skin sloughing like wet paper. Grinder operators endured diamond grit embedding corneas, 2200 vision by quitting time. Constant whine eroding eardrums to 40 decibel losses. Press operators fed rings into hydroforming dies at 5,000 psi. Misfeeds pulped forearms, tourniquets improvised from belts as co-workers screamed for the hook. Amputees returned next shift, hooks grinding metal, averaging 38 years before heart failure or mesothelioma felled them. Women inspectors, rare birds in the din, chained calipers to wrists, eyes burning from flux, rejecting 1 in 50 ovals that deviated a thou. Their sacrifice embedded in every ring, sweat alloyed into pores, resolve tensioned like the metal itself, while today's climate-controlled lines birth fragility with 0 scars. Decades later, these titans mock the calendar. A 53 flathead V8 in a Kansas wheat hauler logs 800,000 miles, rings unscathed, pulling 20 tons uphill unloaded. Race motors from Bonneville salt flats, overheated to 600 degrees, retain shape through 200 passes. Compared to Volkswagen's 2.0T in 2022. Passat's, low-tension moly-coated wire forms, tension dialed to 20 psi for MPG games, burning quartz by 60,000 miles, carbon buildup choking valves. Ford's EcoBoost follows suit, rings fluttering under turbo spool, oil starvation cracking pistons. We abandoned overdesign, old safety margins of 500% traded for bean counter spreadsheets, prioritizing Six Sigma yields over apocalypse proofing. Regulations: emission traps demand thin films that flake. Profit models lease engines every 3 years. Boeing chased software dreams into 2 fatal plunges. MCS overrides turning pilots into passengers. John Deere's 8R tractors, $500,000 behemoths, go dark from OTA updates denying farmers diagnostics. Dealership monopolies rake millions in repairs. Plastic gears in power tools strip teeth after 100 hours. iPhones plan to corrode batteries at 80% capacity, forcing upgrades. We build for the landfill now, not the ledger of lifetimes. Those 1950s rings scoffed at such frailty. Excavate a cylinder from a 1957 International Harvester TD9 bulldozer, logged 1.2 million hours grading airstrips in Alaska's freeze-thaw hell. Rings mirror bright, no budding, no taper wear, holding 220 psi dry. A 54 Mercury Y-block in a California hot rod, supercharged to 20 psi boost, devours nitromethane through 50 seasons of strip burns. Pull the bores, and graphite faces gleam. Oil control flawless amid 800-degree peaks. Even submerged in marine mains like the Fairbanks Moore supposed Piston diesels powering Liberty Ship's grandkids, they seal against saltwater intrusion, churning 40 knots across Pacific typhoons without dilution weep. Abuse piled on. Cheap gas with sulfur-corroding walls. Inattentive owners skipping ringside honing, racers pinning pistons at 8,000 RPM limits. Inertia slammed them 1,000,000 cycles per hoop, equivalent to a 747's wing spar stresses, yet radial tension never flagged, pores self-lubricating through carbon varnish. Contrast the 2023 Toyota Camry's 2.5-liter dynamic force mill, low-tension rings from nitrided steel wire, coiled at 15% historic pressure to shave 1 mmOrg for EPA badges. By 70,000 miles, PCV systems gulp oil vapor, rings float under throttle lift, blow-by spiking hydrocarbons 300%. Dealers flash ECUs to limp mode, quoting $8,000 overhauls while warranties evaporate. Honda's Earth Dreams 1.5T follows. Turbo lag flexes the seals, direct injection washes films away, 1,000-mile thirst by 50K. General Motors LT4 supercharged V8 in Corvettes promises eternity, but delivers fluttering moly faces, carbon-packed grooves necessitating walnut-blasting rituals every 20,000 miles. Why the betrayal? Bean counters at headquarters decreed it. Finite element models optimized to the micron, slashing material 60%, over-design jettisoned for Six Sigma scrap rates under 0.1%. Fuel economy mandates birthed featherweight tensioners that whine under load, while NVH reduction paranoia demanded silence over substance, trading damping mass for whirring death. Safety theaters sealed the coffin. OSHA's post-1970 edicts funneled billions into air-filtered bubbles for widgets, starving R&D for robust alloys. EPA's hydrocarbon hysteria forced gapless toppers that gall instantly, chrome bores too slick for retention. Unions bargained 20-hour weeks with climate control, diluting the grit that birthed heroes. Corporations lapped it up. General Motors shuttered Hastings Piston Rings Foundry in 1985, outsourcing to Asia's stamped wire mills, churning 10 million units yearly at pennies apiece. Profit per quarter trumped piston per era. Lisa car culture laughs at 200,000-mile haulers. Today's green push, electric drivetrains sidestep rings altogether, batteries bloating to 1,000 pounds with 10-year shelf lives, cobalt mines scarring Congo for lithium fragility. No inertia, no heat, no soul. When the grid flickers, those old V8s fire on vapor, rings gripping eternal. We stopped because eternity doesn't amortize. Massive safety factors. Old rings over-tensioned 500%. Gray iron yielding at 45,000 psi before cracking. Got axed for just-in-time fragility. Finite analysis predicted enough, but physics lied. Heat cycles in brittle wire forms. Harmonics from deleted mass fracture lands. Detroit's exec suites carpeted in nylon. Forgot foundry floors slick with sweat. Shareholders cheered as capex plunged 70%. Regulations. Tier 4 diesel traps demand low-friction everything. Berthing puffing blowers that warranty out at 100K. Boeing's software senators testify to the hubris. Algorithms over airframes, updates over understanding. John Deere locks firmware, rendering $400,000 combines into e-waste if farmers dare weld their own. Plastic dashboards crack in sun. Actuators seize from dust, no IP67 seal withstands. We've engineered disposability into DNA. Quarterly reports the new Bible. Hunt the survivors today. A fleet of 59 GMC flatheads irrigates Nebraska pivots. Rings untouched at 900,000 miles. Governors pegged wide open dawn to dusk. The Lane Automotive Museum in North Carolina displays a pristine Hastings set from a '52 Plymouth. Bores telescoped under magnification to reveal unworn keystone grooves. Hot rodders at Lyons drag strip source NOS batches from Arizona bunkers, slotting them into 700-horse small blocks that smoke tires eternal. A few rebels, Hastings spiritual heirs like Total Seal, revive out-of-round blanks in Tennessee sandcast ops, hand-blended earths echoing Midwest ghosts, fetching $50 apiece versus Walmart wire at $2. But mass-market engines, doomed to dilute, destined for scrapyards bulging with blue smoking hulks. Progress whispers convenience, but its toll echoes in silenced forges and fragile fleets. We bartered iron immortality for silicon illusions, brute force for button presses, blood-earned tension for tensionless trash. The world turns on leased lies now. What happens when the leases run dry and the old iron stands alone?